Hey guys, thank you for checking out the channel. My name is G and you're watching Keeping This Tech. Today is Tuesday, so we're talking about cameras. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the A7 IV, but for photography. Now, this camera has a 33 megapixel sensor. And this is about what, 28% more than the A7 III's 24 megapixel sensor. Now, that might not seem like a big increase. And if you're looking at the images side by side, there's not that much of a difference in quality, except for the fact when you think about what that all really means. Now, some people will bring up, the fact that you have more, megapixels to crop in and you retain a lot of your image. Others will say, hey, you can downsample and get a sharper image. But to me, what stands out about the 33 megapixels is the fact that you're not losing out on any low light performance from that 24 megapixels that you would get with the A7 III. There was a lot of discussion about the A7 IV and before it was released, and if it would bump up the megapixels, if it would maybe lower it, if it would keep it at the same. And a lot of people were leaning towards them raising the megapixels, which is what Sony ended up doing. But they also thought that maybe it could come at the cost of the low light performance. And some thought, hey, maybe they would feel okay doing that because the A7S III was out and that was a low light king. And if you wanted a low light performing camera for stills and video, then you would probably go upstream for the A7S III. But that's not exactly what happened here. Sony didn't do that with the 33 megapixels on the A7 IV. They basically gave it more or less the same capability in low light as the 24 megapixels. I mean, the difference is negligible. And beyond that, if you think about what they've done with the ISO performance, people are always talking about Sony cameras, at least the more recent ones, is dual ISO. And that's actually not technically true. I think the term is ISO invariant, which basically means that regardless of the ISO, you're going to get more or less the same performance, or you can bump up to the second circuit to basically get a cleaner level, depending if you're talking about video or stills. But in the case of photography, what I'm noticing is if I'm shooting at ISO 400 or ISO 800, there is almost no difference in the amount of noise that's in the image based off of the ISO. You know what I mean? So if you're well lit and you're exposed properly, it doesn't really matter which ISO that you're using. The ISO itself is not going to add more unwanted grain or noise to the image if it were higher or lower. I think there's a couple of factors that we got to consider for this performance. Obviously, the processing power that's now in the A7 IV, it's the same that's in the A1 and the A7S III, but also the way Sony has married the sensor with the ISO and the way that all works, it's just magic. And I think it's incredible that we're not losing out on any low light image quality just because we bumped up the resolution. So shout out to Sony for this. We're going to talk more about the A7 IV and other Sony cameras next Tuesday on Camera Talk Tuesdays with your boy G from Keeping This Tech. I'll check you guys out in the next one. Peace.